3PNR with Adam R. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. Joining me for this episode is Ron Johnson, Utah Bigfoot hunter. Ron, how you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? Thank you.
Doing well. Glad to have your time. Let's start with this. What got you involved with looking for Bigfoot in general?
Well, it all started for me back in when I lived in Southern California during high school. This was back during the 1960s and 70s. I was interested in these the sightings that they had down in the Southern California area where I lived, all the way from Borrego, San Diego, clear up north to Los Padres National Forest, and then east over to Tehachapi, and then down through Cajon Pass in Victorville. There was a lot of sightings back in the days, and I've been interested ever since. And then in 1972, when I moved to Utah, I was interested in it still, but I didn't really participate in it professionally until, about, I think it was right about the year 2000 when I started taking a more serious interest in it.
So in that timeline, have you witnessed or seen a Bigfoot yourself?
I have, and this was in the Book Cliffs of Utah in May of 2012. A friend of mine had a sighting. He worked in one of the local coal mines up here. It was up Sea Canyon in Carbon County, Utah. He was a truck loadout boss, and he had sent me an email saying that he thought he saw one on his way home from work one day in May, and I think it was on May 5th. And he sent me an email, and I told him that I would go and see if I could find any evidence. And so I went. Every night I would go over there, even in the daytime. Never found anything evidence-wise, no footprints, no hair on the barbed wire fencing alongside the road or anything like that. And finally, it was May 12th, I was in Price, Utah, at my cousin's house. And I asked him if he would like to go up and see where the Bigfoot sighting was. And he agreed. And so we drove up there, and Lord and behold, we saw it. He was about 90 feet off the side of the road, standing in a clearing, watching us.
What's your initial reaction to that?
Shock. I just, I was in I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I was just put my chin right up against the steering wheel, and I just stared at it through the windshield. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to crap or wind my wristwatch. It was very, very apprehensive to look at. And my cousin was with me, and he was getting real excited, having a hard time controlling his composure. And so I told him to get out very, very slowly. And so we got out of my Jeep. And then when I looked, he was gone.
Huh.
But it was very, very intimidating to look at.
That's something I never factored in is the until recently. I've spoken to someone yesterday about it, in fact, Tom Conwell, and I never factored in the fight or flight mechanism programmed to humans, right? Because I often say this, if I see something, I'm going to run at it because I've never witnessed anything. So my reaction is I'm going to run at this, even if I have to grab a ball of hair from its body or, maybe get killed by it, one or the other. that's what I would want to do. But I never factored in fight or flight for most people. And
yeah, that's what I've always thought too, until you actually see one, and then your whole demeanor changes.
yeah, because something I imagine at that size would put you at pause, right? Because now you got to question mortality.
Oh, yeah.
This thing could kill you with ease.
Oh yeah, yeah. His biceps were bigger than my two legs put together. It was just intimidating to look at. It really was.
You know, another thing too, because the Bigfoot for me was the hardest one out of everything I research and want to investigate. That was always the hardest one because it's such a large animal, and I feel like we would have caught it by now. But that being said, I had this poor frame of mind where I was like, some hunter would have shot this thing. But then a friend of mine who's a hunter told me, he goes, you know, most hunters have a great respect for nature. They're not out there just to kill. They're out there to hunt, but they appreciate nature. They respect the animal essentially, right? So it wouldn't be a first reaction to shoot and kill something, especially if you're assuming it's the last of it.
That's the last thing I would want to do is shoot at one. I definitely wouldn't want to kill one.
Right, especially if you shoot at it and it looks at you like, yeah. What was that?
Yeah, this was, my cousin was so excited. He wanted to run right down there. And so we started to walk down towards where we saw it. And I got this, I don't know if you've heard about telepathic communication between a Sasquatch and a human.
I've heard some about it.
But I got a real strong message in my mind, as it said, stay back, do not approach. So I stopped my cousin and I told him that I'm getting a message in my mind that we got to stay here. Don't go down there. And so after must have been about a minute or so, the feeling went away. So we started walking down there, and we got about halfway to where it was standing, and my cousin drops to the ground on all fours. And where we saw this, it's in a juniper and pinyon pine forest, and he drops down onto his knees and he's looking underneath the trees, and he says there's two more over here. I can see their feet. And I'm listening to this grunting noise that's coming from that direction. And all of a sudden I just get a real cold feeling. And I says, let's walk over there that way. There's a clearing over there. And I knew this area very well. And so we started to walk over there. And I don't even think we got 5 steps. And I got that telepathic message again. It said, stay back, do not approach. And I told my cousin, I said, I'm getting that message again. So we stopped, waited a while. And after about a minute or so, then we started walking over there again, and I didn't have that feeling, that warning in my mind. So we walked over to the clearing, and across this clearing, I would probably guess it was probably about 300 feet across. There was a hill, and I just happened to look up and saw the tops of 3 animals just clearing the crest of that hill and disappearing. And I didn't get a real good look at it. I'm assuming that they were the Bigfoot, but I can't be 100% sure on that particular one. But the one we saw from the side of the road was that was definitely a Bigfoot.
You know, a lot of people ask me the question about what are they eating and why are we not finding the bodies and et cetera, et cetera. And then you ask, well, why don't you find the carcasses of the prey animals that the mountain lions feed upon? I mean, you almost never do. In fact, in the wild, I've been reading about it. You almost never find the body of a grizzly bear. And that's a very large animal. Like when they're deceased, it's like they just disappear, or maybe they buried themselves. I'm not sure, but you don't find that a lot.
Yeah. Where I live in Utah, in southeast Utah here, there's a lot of bear tracks. There's bear tracks everywhere. We get them in town. We get cougars in town, but you never see them. You never see a dead one.
Right. Nor do you see their kills. Yeah, you never see their kill unless you're intentionally following them around. And even then, I didn't notice till recently. So I'm a big fan of like Big Cat Diaries and a lot of documentaries like that. I didn't realize how hard it is for them to track down these animals and record them. So when you're seeing this hour-long documentary, that's months and months of them trying to track them down and then maintain and be able to follow them. It's not nearly as easy as we depict it as to be. Now I picture an animal that's intelligent, right? And it's a primate.
Right.
And so
Correct.
They're very aware of how we would probably track or look for them. And then they're probably very more than aware. And if you look, I didn't realize this either. This is how small-minded I was once upon a time. When you look at the map of the U.S., because I used to say, like, well, how do these things live in the United States and we're not finding them? There's a lot of vast wilderness and desert and farmland. There's enormous pieces of real estate in the middle of the United States and the top east. It's just vast, wide open. The humans are very, very rarely in there.
Yeah. It's like in the area where I live in Carbon and Emery counties, there's on one end, we have the valley that I live in Castle Valley, we have the Book Cliff Range that goes mainly from the Manti clear to Grand Mesa in Colorado. And on the other end of the valley, we have the Fish Lake National Forest and the Boulder Mountains. Both ranges are there's all kinds of sightings going on there on both. And what I postulate is that they move back and forth between the boulders and the Book Cliffs. But to actually get there, to be not seen, I was thinking, they might be going up to the Manti and around, making a big C to get there. But we have what's called the San Rafael Swell, which is right in between the two mountain ranges. And I think they migrate through that part. There's a lot of people that go down there, for weekend trips and camping, but there's really nobody that backpacks into that area. And there's a lot of vast open. This is country like Canyonlands National Park. You got all these canyons. You've got these little ranches in there so far apart. So they got food. They have plenty of shelter to hide from. And it's just a theory of mine.
It's a good theory.
We have been finding tracks in there. And I got a real good video that I think is a vocal. It's on my YouTube page from the area.
Yeah, I'll clip that in the description as well. I'll put a link for that. It's a good theory. I say this because there's this game online you can play, or not online, it's a console or PC. It's called Flight Simulator. Mm-hmm. And I was messing around with it one day. I was like, well, I live in Florida. If I had a super jet and I just wanted to fly dead across the United States to the other coast, how long would it take, in this virtual world? And when you're doing this Flight Simulator and you're flying over to the middle of the United States, there's large portions of nothing. Like just nothing. You don't realize it. Again, it's because I live where I live and I don't really view things from that perspective, that when you're flying this plane, all you see is these little, like, off-brand airstrips every so often.
Right.
And so it's very feasible for there to be a new species of any animal out there that we haven't discovered yet. It's just there's a lot of real estate out there we haven't checked out.
Yeah. Well, where I live in Utah, in southeastern Utah, there's not a lot of people here. There really isn't. I don't even think there's 15,000 people in the whole county that I live in. And that's probably including the next couple of counties combined. But what got me into getting serious about looking for Bigfoot was a lot of the researchers that I've talked to over the years tell me there's only two places in Utah that you're going to find a Bigfoot. It's either in the Wasatch Front or it's going to be in the Uinta Mountains. He said you're not going to find, you're wasting your time looking for Bigfoot anywhere else. And I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've been talking to so many people that's had Bigfoot sightings here in Carbon and Emery counties, Grand County, Wayne County. I just don't believe that. And I'd get into arguments with these other researchers. So I started to document and interview people. And so far, as of to date, I've got 109 sightings and encounters that I have personally interviewed people just in Carbon and Emery counties.
Right.
But, I do others. I've interviewed people from Alaska and California, Nevada, Wyoming, and other places like that. But I mainly stick to southeastern, the southern half of Utah.
Well, there's a lot of caverns, caves, and dense, wilderness. This is me as a kid thinking, right? So there's one incident when I was a kid, I live in Florida, and, in the area I live in, it's not like dense wilderness, but there's patches of like these parks where it's like, wooded. And
right.
I went to a park with some friends and, we went off the beaten path, right? Just because we wanted to explore, idiots. And it's crazy how fast you get lost in a small part of woods, right? You get lost really quick. I mean, you could really lose your bearings, especially if you don't know what you're doing, to know the difference between northeast and west. And so that's a small little park that we got lost in. Eventually found our way out because we picked one direction, walked in it, thankfully got out.
Right.
If my parents are listening, yes, I did sneak out, and yes, I did do that. And then you picture large places like in the northeast and where you live, and it's endless. And so I don't see as an investigator for Bigfoot, there's what is the team size? Like, it's when you're out there looking, is it just you and another person or no?
It's usually me and one other person. When I first started doing this, I was doing it by myself, and I belonged to a paranormal group in Salt Lake, and this one weekend she had a fellow named Daryl Smith. He was at the time the premier Bigfoot hunter in Utah, and this guy has literally thousands of interviews and videos of possible Bigfoot that I've got on my channel. And so I went and listened to him. He was given a presentation at the Hunter Library in Salt Lake City. And right after the meeting, we just became good friends. And he shared the same perspective that I have, that this phenomena is probably mainly in the Wasatch Mountains and the Book Cliffs, or not the Book Cliffs, but the, for Pete's sakes, brain freeze.
It's fine. It's fine. Let me ask you. I'm sorry. What was that?
The Uinta Mountains.
Okay.
Is what I was trying to think of. And he says, I believe that they're also in other places of the state. So we teamed up and we started going out looking for evidence. We'd go everywhere. We'd go out on the West Desert. We'd go into the Manti, all over, up north by Ogden is a good place. And we would spend a lot of time down here in southern Utah looking. And he was my partner for 5 years. This is what's weird. For 5 years, and then he contacted ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and died. So I went back doing it by myself again. And then we had the sighting in May of 2012. And I took my cousin, and he went with me and when we had the sighting, and he wanted to become my partner. So I let him join, and we'd go all over the state of Utah too. And then it was almost 5 years to the date. He went to bed one night and died.
Damn.
It was just weird. And so now nobody wants to be my partner because of this. So I do it by myself now. But I've got, I can't get out into the wild country like I used to because I need a heart transplant.
Yeah.
I got a bad heart and I got to be real careful what I do now. But I can go out and, I do calling at night and actually get responses.
Well, with your knowledge, right, of the area, where to look and et cetera, you could have a team on your, a team a team follows you, and you could utilize technology where you can't physically go out there. Drones could go out there. We have ground drones.
Yeah.
The technology, I don't see a lot of Bigfoot investigators utilizing major technology. And I think that's not because of lack of wanting to, more is it the cost of it. It's, those resources are expensive, right?
Right.
Especially when you're attaching FLIR or infrared to a drone, and you have to have an operator who knows what he's doing with the machine, and then you with the knowledge of where to look. I mean that's the co-op you would need to make that, to achieve that anyway.
Yeah. What we would do, I have thermal imaging cameras, and those things at the time when I bought them, they're not cheap.
No.
They don't give those things away. And we would go out and I teamed up with a friend of mine that has a paranormal group in Tooele, Utah. And we would go out like at 1 a.m. in the morning, and then we'd go hike up to the top of some mountain up Mill Creek Canyon in or someplace anywhere along the Wasatch Front. We would, go hike up, to the top, and then use the thermal imaging and night vision. And usually all we would find is, most of the time we get skunked, but occasionally you'll find some weird stuff that you can't explain.
Yeah, there's a documentary I watched where it was, I think it's the Savannah or something like Africa at night. I can't remember the name off top, but they were using high-end thermal cameras to record what goes on at night. And you could see small animals in the distance, remarkably. So that technology, those cameras in particular, if they're utilized in the Bigfoot hunt, I think would produce, or at least help produce, tangible evidence. Because, again, the places you're looking in are very vast, very large.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about a large bipedal animal who also is intelligent, hears humans coming its way, and so in other words, if you and just one other guy are walking in this general direction, as large as that animal is, it could run the other way and be 2 or 3 miles off long before you get to its location.
Yeah.
It would prove difficult, in my opinion.
Yeah, you got to darn near walk up on them. And I think your chances would be a lot better of finding one if you're, riding a horse or a mule.
Right. Or a team. You would need teams. Like, as a kid, I was like, what would be cool to find Bigfoot? I don't remember. There was a channel called Spike. They're not around anymore. I don't even know what they are today.
Yeah, I remember them.
And they were discussing a competition to find Bigfoot. I think it was like a $2 million prize or something like that. Something around that ballpark. And that got me intrigued. And that was, I think, a decade ago, maybe 10 years ago. I heard about that. I'm like, wow, that would be really cool, because now you would have people with top-end sophisticated equipment vested in doing this. They'll go out there and put their best efforts out there. And nothing ever came of it. In fact, Spike it's not even a channel anymore. So, but it was a great idea. And what made me think about it is if I had a large team consistent of drones and hunting experts and people who are, their expertise is in that geographical area. I mean, I always thought that would be the way to go, is have an enormous team. But I don't think they put a lot of resources behind Bigfoot study, because a lot of people, it's an easy to dismiss topic, right? It's like, nah, it's bullshit. Yeah. And to the credit of that, like we found gorillas once upon a time that we didn't know existed. And this is like, I think it was like the 80s or 90s. And these are mountain gorillas. We had no idea they existed. They were among us the entire time, but they were intelligent enough not to make noise or be noticed. I think we happened on those, right? So now a larger primate with a larger ability to think, I would imagine, everything I hear about Bigfoot, this doesn't sound like a wild, mindless animal. It sounds very intelligent. And if that's the case, it would know how to cover it, keep itself concealed and maybe cover up its existence,
Yeah, I think they're a lot smarter than what people give them credit for.
Yeah,
I really do. I think they're more, to me, they seem more human than primate, or, somewhere in between.
Yeah, because the indigenous Americans, Native Americans, long time ago, acknowledged the existence of this creature and also said to leave it be, that it's more of the angelic, and we're not to disturb it. And we want to say a lot of things that Native Americans or the indigenous would say was like, oh, well, it's just them getting high on whatever and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of the stuff they said came to light. They had some prophecies I've been reading about, the way the land works. I mean, the more I read about it, the more I'm like, well, maybe you got to make room for this now.
Yeah. Down in the Four Corners area, the Navajos, they have a lot of sightings down there. They got some really fantastic stories to tell.
Yeah.
If you've ever listened to them.
And they don't seem very interested in going viral or making channels about it.
No.
They just accept it.
No.
They leave it be.
Yeah. It's just a part of their culture. Just like the skinwalker.
Yeah. Same story. That anomaly is there in that area, and it's one of very many. And we're supposed to not disturb it, right? Because whatever it is, it's beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
I'll give you a name.
Where I live in Carbon County, just right directly on the other side of the Book Cliff Mountain for me, the mountains, is the Skinwalker Ranch. And I've got paranormal investigator friends that go over there and they research that quite extensively. And they've witnessed like portals opening up. Now this is getting into the paranormal aspects of Bigfoot. But,
well, there's a lot of parallels, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read something, and I've been hearing more than I do the podcast and more of the research I do, that it's not impossible that, well, we know already in science that if we manipulate particles, we could warp space-time, right? We're starting to learn this. So perhaps maybe something greater than what we understand is warp. Like, I think personally, like the UFOs, and when I researched that, you never hear a sonic boom off a UFO. So they're clearly doing something to manipulate the space around them. And when they're manipulating the space around them to travel, are they opening these doorways unknowingly? I mean,
it's very possible. Now, my first partner I had, Daryl Smith, he had some really amazing interviews with people. And there was one in particular where the lady was having I can't give her name, but she lived in the Salt Lake area.
right.
And she was having these abduction experiences. And while they had her on board the craft, there was Bigfoot type creatures on there.
Were they there just hanging out, or are they there as another subject?
They were there. She said that they seemed to be like workers, kind of like what Greys do.
Right.
I know this sounds weird, but in my UFO experiences that I've had, I have never encountered a Bigfoot associated with a UFO yet. But I've read there was many accounts of them in Southern California, especially right around Edwards Air Force Base and Tehachapi. There's back during the 50s and the 60s, there was a lot of them being reported.
It's when you look at the study of ufology, and it goes back thousands of years, this isn't new, right? This isn't from the 40s. Ancient man has depicted things in the sky that they explained it the best. This is what mankind, we do. We explain things based on what we know to the best of our knowledge at that time. And so thousands of years ago, and I'm reading these different studies, we're depicting things in the sky, and then we're depicting creatures on the ground. And it leads me to the same kind of thought. If these objects are flying around and they're not disturbing the airspace, means they're definitely manipulating the space-time around them, right?
Right.
And maybe they're opening and closing portals to not just say different dimensions, but it could just be parallels of Earth. Like Bigfoot could, in some opinions, could very well be living in a parallel universe to us. And when those gateways open, they pass between them. So they're going between present time where they're from to present time where we are. And so that's where I think some parallels lie. And I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying everything I read kind of makes me think that. Yeah,
it could be a different time dilation there, or possibly a different, like an astral plane, an etheric type presence.
Right. I mean, we're speculating now in like real scientists in some large universities are speculating that there is another existence of what we know as Earth and our universe directly next door to us. We just can't perceive it.
Oh, there is. If you've ever astral projected, have you ever had an OBE?
I have no experience with anything, but I'd spoken with a lot of people about it.
Yeah, I've had lots of OBEs, and then there's different planes.
Right. So
between here and what you call heaven.
Well, that's another thing too. I don't typically subscribe to heaven and hell's being existed places like north or south. They're different dimensions. It's where you're, and dependent on your energy and how you behave here in our current time is where your energy goes to the next plane, right?
Right.
So that being said, in your studies so far, Bigfoot particularly, what are your conclusions? Like, what are your conclusions on Bigfoot, and where do you think the best place to locate one would be?
I think the best place and the best way to find one is you don't want to go out. This goes back into the paranormal aspects of Bigfoot, but I actually believe that he knows what your intentions are. Huh, right. He knows what you want to do. If you're going out there purposely trying to find one, you're not going to find one.
Right.
it has to be on his playing field. It has to be you're just out for the day, out hiking, and then boom, you might run into one. It's weird. It's like if you have your cameras and stuff with you, it's like with UFOs, the same thing.
Right.
You always see a UFO when you don't have a camera, seems like most of the time. And it's the same with Bigfoot. It's like when I saw the one, me and my cousin saw the one back in May of 2012. I had been going there for like 5-6 days previous to this, purposely looking for evidence. I took cameras. I would set up cameras. I'd set up trail cams all over the place, and I'd never see anything. And it just happened to be that day, I just asked my cousin if he wanted to just go up there and look. I didn't have any plans on doing anything. I just wanted to show him where the Bigfoot sighting was.
Right.
And we get up there, and that's when we see it. It's when I didn't have any of my equipment with me. And this is pretty bad for a paranormal investigator to go out and not have any equipment with them.
You know,
but that's when it'll happen.
It's always when it happens, right? So typically,
Yep.
So you know, we're gonna play on the idea that Bigfoot has a receptor, right? Like, and when I say this, we have receptors. Animals have receptors. If
right.
you, like, an example would be when you walk into a room and there's someone in there and they're hostile, and particularly they're hostile towards you, you could almost sense it, right? We pick up on that, and animals do the same thing. Like, animals could tell when another one's hostile. You could, like, for an example of that, when you see two cats and one of them's hostile towards the other one, it's like the other one figures it out, and before growling and fighting even starts, they just know. And so now when you're going out into the field and you're broadcasting that, I'm going to find Bigfoot, and perhaps their receptor picks up that, you know, and they're like, all right, well, let's steer out of that area. That guy's crazy, you know?
Yeah, they're a lot more in tune than humans are. But there are humans out there that are in tune.
Yeah, I mean, I say that a lot about psychics and mediums. Everyone has the same hardware, right? We all have the same brain, the same computer. We just, some of us have different software or different uploads or downloads, right? Some people could utilize those parts of the brain that are more receptive than others because either it's compensated to do so because they've had an injury, and or they've hyper focused to develop that portion of their brain, or some people just wake up and they have it. And that could be said for sports too, man. Like, listen, some people are good at basketball, right? Because they worked really hard to hone their skills. And then other people woke up with it and they're just stars. So that could be exampled in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one case here in the town I live in. I live right at the base of the Book Cliffs. My house is about maybe a half mile from the mountain,
right?
And the town actually goes up right into the mouth of the canyon. And this one lady that I interviewed, something had woke her up in the middle of the night, and she knew. I don't know how she knew. She doesn't know, but she knew there was somebody at her front window in her living room. And when I went up and investigated it and interviewed her, this window that she's talking about is probably 12 feet from the ground because her house sits on a partially exposed basement. And she knew there was something there. So she got up it was like about 1:30 in the morning, got out of bed, went and opened the curtain, and this Bigfoot type creature's just staring at her through the window. And for some reason, she knew there was something there, but she wasn't expecting, a Bigfoot or anything like that.
Well, that's
and so she.
humans are programmed, man. Like when we say we sense something at our core, at our primal core, we're our job, our brain's job anyway, is to detect a threat,
right?
A cat in the night or something that's going to try to eat me, you know. And that's
right.
When people sense that, that's a very real thing. I don't doubt it's the abilities of the brain when it comes to protecting someone. That could be even said when you're in a traumatic car accident. Your brain recognizes that and tries to terminate that lessen the blow of what you're going through.
Yeah, it goes into a defensive type mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring a name to your attention. I've heard of the guy before, never gave him a second thought. And then when I mentioned this people, I was going to look for people to talk about Bigfoot. They brought him to my attention. His name is Todd Standing. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You bet.
And his footage,
he's one of my Facebook friends.
Yeah, his footage is interesting stuff, man.
It is. That's weird. I have been out trying to do what he does, and I just can't do it for some reason. It just doesn't happen. Maybe I don't have the right psyche in my soul. I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say maybe he could tune out the receptor. Again, some humans, I think people that get abducted by aliens have a special quality to them that other people don't have. Mm-hmm. And most people, when I say that, like, well, I'm not rich and blah, blah, I'm not, I don't do anything outlandish. Well, that's not what they look for. They look for something at the DNA level or molecular, or, but the large percentage of humans that get abducted usually have some sort of something in their psyche that works different than others, a different receptor. Maybe it's, and I say this a lot, maybe aliens are among us, and only those who perceive them are the ones that have the interactions, because I couldn't perceive them. But maybe that explains why I've never witnessed anything. I lack that software in my hardware to see these things. And so maybe that guy Todd has something in his mind or in his psyche, in his computer, that allows him to kind of know where to be and how to be, and maybe blocks out the other reception. It's not impossible.
Yeah, I had I don't know if this was a Bigfoot sighting or not, because I didn't actually see it.
Right.
But years ago, this was back in the 1970s, my brother and a friend of his came out from Utah. So we, go deer hunting. And so we went up by Soldier Summit. We went into the, I guess that'd be the Wasatch Ketch National Forest. And we found this little knoll that had trees around it. And that's where we made our camp. Well, we hunted for 3 days there. And on the third night, after we ate, we all went to bed. We had a big army tent, and we all slept in it. And we left the fire burning all night right by the tent. And something had woke me up. And I could see the glow through the tent from the fire that was still burning. Huh. So, and I could hear something walking. There was something walking around the tent. My old heart is just pounding, And I tried to wake up my brother and them, and I just like, during an abduction, you cannot wake other people up, but you're awake. And I kind of was peeking out the flap, the doorway flap on the tent, and there was this, I thought it was a bear, but it wasn't. It was walking on two legs, and it walked around the tent twice, and I could see it, but I couldn't make out what it was, and it just
sometimes,
the hell out of me.
Well, yeah, but sometimes when you have a chemical response with fear, you freeze. Some people just freeze, period, right? Especially when you know that your life's at stake. So I'm a weird person. I probably would have ran at it And if I do a documentary, I know I'm fully aware that I'd have to have a team with me, right? So someone could bring the footage back, because the likelihood of me becoming very, very injured on site are very likely, because I'm a real, I got to see it first and I'll think about the repercussions after, and that could be a problem moving forward. Who knows? We'll see. But for most people, I could understand freezing, because I try to picture being, I'll tell you one incident. I was on a walk with my friend Caitlin, all right? And we're here in West Chase, Tampa, and there's a little patch of wooded area. I have a picture of this too. It was a bobcat sitting in the woods. And when I say woods, this is a suburb. This is a neighborhood, one small patch of wooded area. And I didn't even know it was there. She saw it. I panned left and saw it. I grabbed my camera to take a picture, and I was going to run up and try to get a better picture. And she's like, what are you crazy? That's the idiot in me, right? I got to see better. I got to know more, But the point is, here it is, a suburb, daylight, walking with her in a small wooded area. And there's a pretty large animal sitting, if I had to guess, maybe 30 feet from the sidewalk. And I had no clue it was sitting there. None whatsoever. Yeah. So, that alone makes you realize, if now apply that to a large, intelligent creature who's not only self-aware, but also aware of us, and aware of us in the sense that they may portray us as a threat, because in their mind, like, if they see us, it's over. The other animals get cut open and experimented on, et cetera, et cetera. It could very intelligently move out of view slowly, So I don't know. It used to be for me, for Bigfoot, I was like, there's no way. I feel like that's a big animal. I feel like would have had it. But when you look how vast this country has, and places in this country, like wilderness and wide open areas, and then you rewind time to the large cat that was 30 feet off the sidewalk, then you have to make room for the idea that, something could be there, and you just would not see it.
Yeah. It's like where I live here in East Carbon, at the base of the Book Cliffs. There's the population in the town I live in is about 800 people. It's pretty small, but we get, I think we have a bigger population of deer running around town, and bighorn sheep and bears and cougars and bobcats also come into town.
Yeah, relevantly undetected too.
Right, yeah.
So let's say this, for you, if you had, let's say Ron has all the resources he could ask for, what would you do? Where would you go?
I would, I got a drone, but I want to put a GoPro camera on it. But I think I need a bigger drone. I think the drone's too small for the weight of the camera.
Right.
But that's what I would want to utilize, is I want to be able to see from above. And where I would go is in the first place I would go is, are you familiar with the Uinta Mountains?
I'm not, actually.
Of northern Utah.
Not familiar with it, but I'll look into it.
Okay. If you go over to Vernal, Utah, which is in the Uinta Basin, and go up into that would be on the east end of the Uintas, because that's a east-west running range. There's a reservoir up there called Flaming Gorge, and the Green River runs into the gorge and out on its way to the Colorado. That area, oh gosh, there's a mountain there just to the south of there, south of the reservoir. Oh gosh, what's the name of it? No, can't think of the name of it.
Well, that's fine.
One of the first places I would go. A lot of sightings up there, lots of them.
Huh.
and I would go up there with just one person and a drone, and I think you could be quite successful.
What time of the year would be the better time of the year to go to that area?
I like the fall when they're moving around looking for food, looking for sheep and stuff like that. Easy catch animals. A deer might be. I've seen pictures of them, holding deer, but to me, that'd be kind of a tough one. That they probably go after something that's easy to catch, like a sheep or something like that,
right.
Lambs. And there seems to be a lot of that in this part of Utah. Chickens and stuff like that from these small ranches, and the a lot of apple orchards down here. You see them in. You get reports of them in orchards quite a bit, like they do up in Washington.
Sustenance is plentiful for them then, was what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
They could
right.
I mean, a human could survive in those conditions.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's practical. I could see using a drone. I would, if in a picture perfect world, I have a drone that has multiple cameras, a FLIR camera, has a high definition camera, has night vision. So it would operate in all the, I mean, it would be tricky to fly it. I don't know the distances or the ranges on them, but in a picture perfect world, I'd have a drone that could virtually go, 100 miles, 200 miles. That's just me thinking, that's the hopeful me.
Yeah.
Well, before we close out, let's talk about your YouTube channel, where people could find it and what they could expect to see there.
Oh, okay. I got a lot more to put on it. I don't have a whole lot on it here recently. My paranormal plate is full with, I'm in the process of writing a book about my UFO experiences. And I want to do something with Bigfoot also. But my YouTube channel is the Utah Bigfoot Hunter. And then I have a Utah Bigfoot Files. It's a blog. And then I have a Utah Paranormal File blog. That mainly consists of I do everything. Like I say, my plate is full. I've done ghost hunting. I still do EVP work quite a bit. And the Bigfoot, I still do it, but like I say, I can't get out into the rough country because of my heart. Right. I have to be careful where I go now. But then I've got my Facebook page, Utah Paranormal Files. I got some of my Bigfoot stuff on there, but I got a lot of these. I've got 109 actual Bigfoot encounter reports that I've collected from people in the Carbon and Emery County area. And I've only got like 48 of them put on my blog, and I got to get the others written up and put on there. There's just not enough day in the time anymore to get this stuff done, and it's tough for one person to do.
Well, for you, like you initially had an experience involving ufology, right? And that probably opens the window, because I would, for me in particular, if I had an encounter with anything that we call supernatural, it's going to open the window of possibility for anything after that, because you can no longer doubt anything after you've seen something, that's parallel to you.
Oh, yeah. Once that paranormal door opens up, it won't close. It's open
Yeah,
for the
because,
rest of your life.
yeah, because you're never going to stop thinking about the possibilities, especially when you see the one thing. Like, and for you and your cousin, it's a very profound sighting, right? And so for the rest of your life, whether you see it again or not, it's at the forefront of your thoughts. You know, you want to find more.
Oh, absolutely. I've always wanted to find one, but and now that I have, I'm satisfied. I don't need to find any more because I know they exist. I know they're there. And I've got, oh man, let's see, just within a 5-mile radius of where I live, I've probably got 12 documented encounters with a Sasquatch. And these are, one was a mine foreman, a truck loadout boss at a mine, 2 truck drivers, a BLM employee,
right,
a sheriff's deputy, and various other people that live in the area.
And
a lot of them, I can't mention their name.
Well, no, that's fine. Their privacy matters. What I am hearing, though, is every person you listed is someone who's not looking for Bigfoot. They just,
exactly.
That's the key, right? Don't look for it, because
that's the key. Don't look for them.
These guys wanted nothing to do with it, and there it is. And that's
go ahead. You need to. Do you know Becky Cook?
I don't. I'll have to look her up.
Oh, she's a researcher in Idaho that I know, and her main topic is paranormal Bigfoot. She's got some stories that'll blow your mind.
Oh, I'm interested in talking to her.
You got to look her up, and if you can interview her, she'd be a good one.
I'll have to track her down.
Well, yeah.
Well, anyway, Ron, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation thoroughly. I will put everything in description where they could find the links for your Facebook and for the YouTube channel and the blog and everything else. And in the meantime, I'm going to say goodnight to anyone listening, tomorrow, good day, or whatever it is for you. And I'm going to talk to Ron in post.
Okay. Sounds great. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir.